Hello! Today we're going to be taking this Build-A-Bear Umbreon and we're going to be turning it into a shiny Umbreon. And the first thing we're going to actually do is we're going to make patterns for each of the spots on the ears and the leg. And then we're going to also need to measure around here. And then we're going to use those measurements to make patterns. So you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need a flexible measuring tape like you would get with a sewing kit. You'll probably need a ruler, some light paper. I happen to have some parchment paper that I'm using, and a pencil, and you know, that'll be the first things you need. Okay, so now that we have measured, we have a couple different measurements. We have made a pattern for the head symbol here, which is around 2.5 inches by 1.5, but I actually traced it. We have the symbol that is on the legs. It's a little narrower than the one that's on the head, but it's approximately the same size. And then we have measured the stripes that are on the ears and the tail, and the ears are 1.5 by 8 inches long, and the tail is 1.5 by 6 inches long. And so you can take those measurements, and I've drawn out a pattern that actually has the ear, since it's the same width, and then the tail there too, since it's a little less round. So you'll have all of these, and then the next thing you do is you just cut all these out very carefully, leave a little bit extra around the edge. You're going to need that anyway to sew. And then you're going to need, I'm actually going to do this all in fabric, and I'm going to use RIT Synthetic Dymore Kentucky Sky is the color we're going to start with. And so I'm going to cut out all these patterns next, and then we'll get to cutting them out in the fabric after that, and then I will dye everything. And after that is the sewing. But for right now, we just got to get these suckers cut out. So I can't do anything until I do that. So we've got our patterns made, and now we're going to use this light colored minky that I'm going to dye blue, and I'm just going to use a fabric marker just so I can mark out this, and then we'll cut it out with my fabric scissors. And if you're worried about moving, you can use a little bit of tape and tape it down. But you just gotta be, close enough, because we're gonna be cutting around this, and then we will be sewing. So we can go from there. You can also pin it too, whatever works for you. Okay, so now we have our ears and our tail pattern drawn, and we just need to do the legs and the head, and I have plenty of room to do that, which is I was really worried about, to be honest, because I actually have a ton of this extra minky fabric that I ordered since it was light when I was making my blathers, and it's great because I can dye it to whatever color I need. So this is just a scrap of stuff that I've had around, but that's what we're going to use. So I'm going to draw the rings now. One for the head and 4 for the legs. Okay, so now I have all of the fabric pieces drawn out, and I've actually labeled them. So your head, 4 legs, ear 1, ear 2, and the tail. So the next step is to take my fabric scissors and actually do some cutting. So I messed up. Cut this wrong. This is wrong. This should all be 8 inches. So we're going to recut this one, and I'm going to cut out all the ears. All the circles, and we'll be ready to go after that. But it happens. Just testing it is always a good idea. I immediately did that, saw it was wrong. So this is now just scrap fabric, which is fine. It happens sometimes. Okay, so now we have all of our pieces cut out. And the next step will be going into the kitchen and doing the dye. Okay, so for dyeing, we've got our Kentucky Sky dye. We have our dye pot, which you should never use your dye pot for anything but dyeing. We've got our fabric, and we'll just get this started heating up and add our dye, and then once it's going, we'll start dyeing our fabric. Right. So we got this at a simmer. You don't want it too hot. So we're going to just put all our pieces in. So we pulled it off the heat now. I did end up adding one single tiny drop of sapphire blue to this on top of the Kentucky blue. And I mean like, because you do too much and you'll end up doing what I have to do, and that was like pour out half my water, go ahead and wash the fabric, and then start over with half dyed fabric. So, but it came out a very pretty blue, and so the next step is we pull it all out of the water. We're going to rinse it off really good in the sink, and then we'll wash it with some detergent. Normally I would put a bear into the washing machine, but since these are little tiny fabric scraps, I'll wash them by hand with some detergent in the sink. Okay, so now we've got our pieces dyed, and we're going to actually put them on to the Umbreon. And to do that, we're going to be using some thread and a needle, and I'll be using what's called a hidden stitch. Make sure you knot your thread good. Some of these fabrics, especially on the bears themselves, are kind of cheap and loose, and if you're not careful, then the thread will pull through. So we're going to line this up with the seam on the ear. And this is a little wider, but that's fine. That's not a problem. Because we're going to actually take the edge like this. And that is going to be pulled against the fabric here. And I done stuck myself. Ouch. But I didn't say a bad word during the video. So yay on me. Pull this tight. My thread's got a little loop. There we go. Alright, and so as we pull, this is going to pull this down in, and you're not going to see the seam, and it'll look just like these seams where they're sewn in. So that's what you do, and you just keep going back and forth between the two. And we'll go around the corner in a minute. Move the other ear. Getting started on this is always the hardest part, because at first it looks like you're doing everything wrong, but you're not. You're not. I promise. You're doing fine. Alright. So now that we got this going, and we'll come back and we'll trim this little tail off before the end of everything. I'm not gonna make y'all watch the whole sewing, but we got this started now. Ooh, not on camera. There it is. So we got this started, and we've done a couple hidden stitches to hold it here. And then now we're going to go around this corner, and we'll go around the edge until we reach, you know, back all the way around again. And we'll see where we are at on thread, and then, you know, I'll probably have to get some more thread and then go back around. And then I'll do the same to this ear and the tail. And then we'll start on the head dots in a little bit. Alright, so we've been sewing, we've got the ears done, we've got the tail on, and now we're going to do the head dot. And so what I've got here is our head. I don't have the center cut out yet. I have put 2 dots there showing like the max height. And then I want to kind of figure out the width, because I'm not gonna try to cut this out exactly. I just kind of want to get a rough idea, and then I'm gonna sew it. What I'm gonna do before I sew it is I'm gonna take an X-Acto knife, which I have it right here. And I'm going to get this out. And we're going to cut so that we have a hole. And I'm going to cut there. So this will be easier to do with scissors now. And so we're going to make little incisions. And then when we come back, we can fold it out. You know, so that we can use that to start pulling it to the edges. But we're going to sew it on first, and now we have our hole started, so we can sew that down later. Okay, so now we have our circle applied, and the next thing we're going to do is start painting the eyes. I like to use this tulip. Ooh, that's pretty soft matte paint, and this is just the yellow. And it's probably going to take a couple coats, and if you mess up, don't freak out, because you can go back over the white and the black. So just focus on keeping clean lines around the edges. And that kind of stuff. And you'll touch everything up later. And you can be pretty heavy with the paint too. Oh yeah, this will take like 2 or 3 coats. Alright, we've got our first coating of paint on the eyes, and now we just start on coating number 2. Alright, so now I've got a couple of very messy done eyes, and that's fine. That's perfectly fine, that's perfectly normal, that is on purpose. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to clean these suckers up. First thing we're going to do is we're going to do our black, and we'll do our white, because it is the top layer here. So you're just going to take a little bit, and you're going to touch these areas up. This brush is dirty. Don't art better than me. It's an old brush and I don't care anymore. So we're just going to clean all this up. And that's going to give us nice clean lines. And this is going to look, you know, a lot better. Alright, now you might say, oh no, we got some black on our eyes while we were touching up. What do? Just put another coat of yellow on. So this should be our last coat, last touch-ups, and the eyes should be done at that point. Alright, and here we go. We got a little bit of a dark eye look around it to make the eyes pop more. It's more visible on camera than it is in person. And our eyes are done. And I'll be adding the rest of the circles as I go over the course of the next week. They will work the same way as I did for all the others. Put it on there, I'll mark, I'll cut, and then I'll sew. But the technique will be the same, so there you go.